July 2nd, 1994, Medellin, Colombia. The night air buzzed with the sound of music and laughter as people gathered in bars across the city, shaking off the disappointment of Colombia's 1994 World Cup performance. At one particular bar, that man was Andrés Escobar, a 27-year-old Colombian defender who was known as a national hero, a man whose nickname, the Gentleman of Football, captured his elegance both on and off the pitch. But on this night, nobody looked at him as a hero. Just days after an own goal during the 1994 FIFA World Cup, a mistake that contributed to Colombia's shock and elimination, Escobar was gunned down in the parking lot of a nightclub in Medellin. Witnesses reported hearing the killer mockingly shout, "Gol," with every shot fired. 6 bullets ended the life of a man who had always preached the values of dignity and respect in football. The news sent shockwaves across the world. A football player killed for a mistake on the field. How could a sport, one meant to unify people, become the source of such violence? How did a man universally respected for his sportsmanship and character become the target of such brutality? This is the story of Andrés Escobar, his rise to fame, the impossible pressures he faced, and the tragic collision of football, politics, and violence that led to his unfortunate death. Before we dive into the story, let's pause for a moment to reflect on the world Andrés lived in. Colombia in the 1980s and 90s was a country at war, not with other countries, but with itself. Bombings, kidnaps, and street violence were a part of the daily life. Sadly, this sort of stuff still happens today. Just over a year ago, Luis Diaz, Colombian Liverpool winger, had his father kidnapped for ransom money, and Andrés Escobar wanted to change that narrative for the younger generation of Colombia. On the pitch, he embodied hope, a chance for Colombia to rise above the chaos and claim its place on the global stage. Known for his discipline and calm nature, he was respected by players and fans alike. Colombia's rise in football overlapped with the influence of drug lords and the cartel wars. Victory came at a price, on and off the field. What happened to Andrés Escobar isn't just a story about football or about accomplishments. It's about the collision of sports, violence, and the unbearable pressure of national expectations. So who was Andrés Escobar? To understand the man that Andrés Escobar became, we need to visit Medellin in the late 1960s, the heart of Colombia. Andrés was born on March 13, 1967, to a middle-class family. Unlike many children in his neighborhood, who struggled with limited opportunities, Andrés had the support of loving parents who valued discipline and education. From a young age, Andrés displayed an unwavering passion for football. Every spare moment was spent with a ball at his feet, whether in his backyard or in the rugged streets of Medellin. He wasn't the most naturally gifted athlete, but what set him apart was his intelligence and composure. While other kids were obsessed with scoring goals, Andrés gravitated towards defense, the position he would play for the Colombian national team. His father, Dario Escobar, was instrumental in shaping his character. Dario believed football was not just about skill, but about responsibility. He taught Andrés the importance of sportsmanship, a principle Andrés carried throughout his career. It's said that Dario often reminded him, on the field or in life, never lose your integrity. By the time Andrés reached his teenage years, his talent was undeniable. He joined the youth academy of Atlético Nacional, one of Colombia's most prestigious clubs, with an incredible youth academy, where his calm composure and analytical approach to the game quickly earned him a reputation as a promising young defender. In 1987, at just 20 years old, Andrés made his professional debut for Atlético Nacional. The transition to professional football wasn't easy. Colombian football was fiercely competitive, and the pressure to succeed was immense. But Andrés thrived. Fans adored him for his elegant playing style and his coaches praised him for leadership and discipline. His breakout moment came in 1989 when Atlético Nacional, led by legendary coach Francisco Maturana, made history by winning the Copa Libertadores. It was the first time a Colombian club had ever claimed the prestigious South American title. Escobar's defensive brilliance was central to their success, and he became a symbol of hope for a country in need of a hero. Off the pitch, Andrés was known for his humility and reserved nature. While many of his teammates embraced the flashy lifestyle, like partying, Andrés preferred quiet evenings at home, reading or spending time with his family. Through this, Andrés gained the nickname, the Gentleman of Football. However, as Colombia's football star rose, so did the pressures that came with it. The influence of drug cartels and gangs on the sport grew stronger, and players often found themselves caught in the crossfire of a dangerous game that extended far beyond the pitch. For Andrés, the love of football was always pure, but the world around him was becoming scarier and scarier. At the time, Colombia was in a turmoil. Drug lords like Pablo Escobar, who has no relation to Andrés, had not only amassed wealth and power, but also infiltrated every corner of society, including football. Clubs across the country relied on the financial backing of cartels to keep their organizations afloat. Matches were not just games, they were showcases of power and influence for those who ran the drug trade. Atlético Nacional, Andrés Escobar's club, was directly funded by Pablo Escobar. While this connection brought resources and talent to the team, it also meant that players were constantly under the shadow of cartel influence. Stories of bribes, threats, and even match fixings were common, and players often found themselves caught in a dangerous game off the pitch. Despite the chaos, Colombian football began to thrive. The national team, led by coach Francisco Maturana, became a beacon of hope for the country. Under his guidance, a new style of play emerged, one built on creativity, technical skill, and flair. Andrés Escobar, with his calm and composed defending, became the cornerstone of this golden generation. However, the cartels saw the World Cup as an opportunity, not just for pride, but for profit. Betting on games was a lucrative business, and the stakes were higher than ever. Players, including Andrés, were reportedly warned that failure was not an option. The weight of these threats loomed over the team as they headed to the United States for the tournament. Andrés, true to his character, remained composed. He focused on representing his country with dignity and hoped to inspire Colombians with his performance on the field. But as the world would soon see, not everything was under his control. The 1994 FIFA World Cup in the United States was supposed to be Colombia's moment to shine. With the team labeled as the tournament favorites and carrying the hopes of a nation on their shoulders, expectations were sky high. Andrés Escobar, as the team's defensive leader, who was already seen as a steadying presence, a player who could handle the pressure and guide his team through the biggest stage in football. But from the start, things didn't go as planned. Colombia's first match was against Romania. Despite their confidence, the team looked out of touch and nervous. Romania exploited their mistakes, winning the game 3-1. The loss was a gut punch to both the players and their fans, who had expected a dominant start. The pressure on the team intensified. Reports surfaced of death threats being sent to the players from various groups tied to the drug cartels. The threats weren't just aimed at the players themselves, but also their families. For Andrés Escobar and his teammates, the World Cup was no longer just a tournament, but a fight for their family. Then came the fateful match against the United States on June 22nd, 1994. It was a must-win game for Colombia to stay in the tournament. Early in the match, disaster struck. In the 35th minute, a low cross was sent into Colombia's penalty area. Andrés, in an attempt to misguide the ball and prevent a U.S. goal, inadvertently deflected it into his own net. The United States took a 1-0 lead. While own goals are a part of football and often forgiven as an unfortunate accident, For Colombia, this was catastrophic. The team's confidence shattered, and despite their efforts to recover, they lost 2-1. With that loss, Colombia was eliminated from the World Cup. After the match, Andrés did what he always did. He faced the moment with grace. He publicly apologized to the fans in an article for Colombia's El Tiempo newspaper, writing, Andrés Escobar returned to Medellin shortly after Colombia's elimination from the World Cup. Despite the loss and overwhelming criticism, Andrés remained hopeful. He believed that he could use his platform to help heal his country and continue to inspire unity through football. On the evening of July 1st, 1994, just 10 days after his own goal, Andrés decided to go out with his friends to unwind. They visited a popular bar in Medellin, where he was recognized by fans. But as the night continued on, trouble found him. In the early hours of July 2nd, Andrés was confronted in the parking lot by a group of men. Witnesses reported that they taunted him about his own goal, mocking him and escalating the situation. Andrés, known for his calm composure, tried to diffuse the tension. But then, the unthinkable happened. One of the men pulled out a gun and shot Andrés 6 times. Witnesses later claimed that with each shot, the killer yelled, "Gol," mocking Andrés' own goal. Andrés Escobar was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. He died from his injuries at the young age of 27. The news of Andrés' murder sent shockwaves across Colombia and the world. The tragedy exposed the dark underbelly of Colombian football, the dangerous intersection of sports, crime, and national pressure. The man who pulled the trigger, Humberto Muñoz Castro, not related to me, even though I am Colombian, was a bodyguard for a cartel-affiliated family. He was later arrested and convicted of Andrés' murder, though many believe he was merely a scapegoat for a much larger system of corruption and violence. Andrés Escobar's death was a national tragedy. Thousands attended his funeral, mourning not just the loss of a football player, but the loss of a symbol of hope. In the years since his death, Andrés Escobar has become a symbol of integrity, grace, and resilience. While his life was tragically cut short, his legacy continues to inspire. In Medellin, a statue was built in his honor, and his story has been shared through books and documentaries, just like this one. Andrés' murder forced Colombia to confront the toxic influence of violence and corruption in its country. In the years that followed, the country began to rebuild, not just in football, but as a nation. Andrés' legacy became a rallying cry for change, a reminder of the cost of letting violence overshadow unity. Today, when people remember Andrés Escobar, they don't think of him as a man who scored an own goal. No, not at all. Instead, they think about the man who played with honor, who carried himself with dignity, and who believed in the power of football to unify Colombia as a whole. His story serves as a reminder that while football is a beautiful game, it is ultimately just that, a game. As fans, as players, and as a society, we owe it to Andrés to ensure that his death was not in vain. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out the other videos on my channel. As always, I am Aiden Castro. See you tomorrow.